All right. Well, I'm, excited. This is one of our latest classes that we've ever done for Softwave University. And tonight, I have really a special guest who's been doing some unbelievable work in his home state of Pennsylvania. Dr. Dan McClyman is on tonight. Dr. Dan, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and your family. And it's right in the middle of the holidays, and so grateful. Why don't you give us a little background about yourself before we get into the real gist of this talk?
Yeah, I'd love to. Great to see everybody tonight. I know some of you guys. I don't know a lot of you, but my wife and I, we practice where I grew up here in Southeast Pennsylvania, about an hour from Philadelphia. She's from Michigan. We met at Life in Atlanta, and we've been open just about 9 years, our practice. And so straight chiropractic for a number of years, and I'll kind of get into the progression of how we brought Softwave in and whatnot. But we have 4 beautiful boys. They're 7, 4, 2, and 9 months. And so we have a family practice. It's associate driven. So we've been very blessed over the years to have a great team. So now we have the ability to do some things outside of the practice. We have a couple other businesses. And we've loved Softwave, and any way that I can help with the growth of Softwave, serving more people, that's really a passion of mine. So hopefully we can really accomplish some things tonight and get some questions answered.
So chiropractor, 10, 12 years? How many years now?
Well, we opened right after I graduated. So yeah, about 9.5.
Okay. So about 10 years. And you started off within the first couple of years, you were doing some rocking numbers in chiropractic. Can you share with us some of those, and who, what techniques did you follow back then?
Yeah. So, I always tell people, we've had amazing mentors, as we do today. So we didn't come up with a lot of this stuff on our own. We just, learned it really well and didn't try to reinvent the wheel. And so we practice torque release technique. So we adjust, these days it's a little less than it was, but we were seeing over 500 a week in our first 11, 12 months. And we got that up to about 800 a week. And now we're a little less than that. And, we do a lot of neuropathy. We do a lot of Softwave as well. And, so those are our main things, but we've always kept chiropractic the foundation. So that's that's a little bit about how the practice grew.
Yeah, awesome. Were you part of AMPT?
Yeah, yep. So Dr. Hess and Visky, Dr. Viscarelli, and Rob Schiffman, and
they've done some great work. I mean, some of the younger doctors coming up who've gone through that are just doing some great work. Well, all right. So I think we've got a good amount of people. I'm going to share my screen to start off, and really kind of chat about the gist. There's probably 2/3 of our participants tonight are actually own this device, and another third are trying to figure out what to do and when to get in this, or how to implement this into their already busy clinics. So I'm going to start with this slide and really see if we can get this going. Here we go. So, I always say nothing is more powerful than an idea that has come, and the OrthoGold 350 is really, it's mostly the most versatile device that we've seen in our lifetime. And, it's been exciting over the last 7 years to be part of this. I always say, I didn't invent the hamburger. This is Ray Kroc's line, but I did take it more seriously than anyone else. And I wanted to make it easy and scalable. This is the type of device that you just add humans and the healing happens, right? So this is not about me. This is really about, or any one doctor, but it's really about this amazing technology and what our next step. There's Dan. Dan, Dr. McClyman was one of our speakers at this year's Neuropathy Summit and really shared a lot of his protocols. That's up at our Lake Estate in New York. I would pencil in or write in October, the first Thursday and Friday of October. We're going to have our 3rd annual one. It's going to be in central New York, beautiful wine country. We talk about spine, wine, and dining. Okay. And, you know, the OrthoGold 350 is a 510K registered exempt device to help decrease pain and help improve circulation, as well as activate connective tissue. And I always say connective tissue is really the fabric of life. It's the building matrix. And with this class 1 clearance, we have a license to heal, basically bone, nerves, skin, you name it. So it's pretty exciting. And as of January 1st, 2022, for our medical doctors and wound centers and podiatrists that are on this call, you are now able to bill through Medicare and get paid up to 6 treatments and anywhere from $360 to $415 per session. So that's exciting. And, you know, does it work? Yes, we're seeing 65 to 91% success rate. You know, this company, Softwave, has been around for 19 years. Kudos to John Warlick, who is, you know, our founder and our CEO and just a true visionary. He has helped, with MTS, has helped raise over $25 million for research and development. And this is the current state of the device. Most of you guys have the OrthoGold 100 or the 100S, and there's over 133 peer-reviewed studies. And I hear this all the time. Oh, most of these studies are focused. And, you know, we called ourselves unfocused, but we're moving back to the original terms. We are soft focused. So, you know, basically the bottom of that soup can is the treatment area, and we can go the depth of that soup can into the biological tissue. You know, I've had some people, I'm, you know, Italian-American, grew up in New York, and, you know, kind of fell into this. I'm a chiropractor, 29 years, fell into this technology, but fell in love with the predictable patient outcomes. And I've done over 3,500 calls with doctors and prospective doctors to purchase this. And we've sold over 1,000 now. Not all me, we have a wonderful team. But, you know, in those 5.5, 6 years, I've had 2 people hang up on me because the first thing they're like, listen, I'm real busy. And just tell me how much it is. And I said, well, you know, before we get started, aren't you going to like take me out on a date or talk to me a little bit? You just want to wham, bam, and that's it. And I look at people because, you know, that even though they're coming to check us out, we're really vetting them out as well. And, you know, if someone is really just focused on how much money they can make, probably not a good partnership for us. So we talk about, and this is from our friend Tony Ebel, the ROII. It's the return on impact in your community first, and how many more people you're going to be able to help and treat, as well as the return on investment. And, you know, simply put, like, so many people haven't heard of it, but, you know, this is a new technology. This is really a new twist on an old technology. Lithotripsy's been around 40 years and has an 85% success rate. There are now 1,700 clinics globally who've invested in this device, and being used by over 18 professional sporting teams here in the United States, as well as 2 in the Premier Soccer League. So we're getting up there. Denver Broncos, New Orleans Saints, Marco Ferrucci, great shout out to him for helping us get in there. Pittsburgh Steelers, Mark Gronowski, Dallas Cowboys, Miami Dolphins. These are all wonderful professional teams that are using this. Dr. James Bradley, who's been a team physician since 1991 with the Pittsburgh Steelers, calls this his secret weapon. He's been the orthopedic team doctor for 32 years. And I said, Doc, can we quote you on that? And he goes, no, this is our secret weapon for getting players back on the field quicker. That's Jim Maurer in the middle, who's head trainer for the Dallas Cowboys for 35 years. You know, we're lucky enough to place this in the Atlanta Braves, now have 2, and just to purchase the 3rd one for their AAA team down in Tampa. And then we're grateful to have Graham McDowell, who's also a PGA champion. So this is the Braves after they won the NL East last year in 2022, and they looked at us as their secret weapon as well. And that's a picture they sent to us and John Warlick. This guy right here is John Boone. He's doctor of physical therapy for the Miami Dolphins, and he's probably the second in command of the training. So he's an amazing champion inside. We're going to have him speaking in the end of the first quarter of 2024. So, Kevin Durant had this done. Dr. Martin O'Malley, who is a foot and ankle specialist for the NBA, the NFL, and works with a lot of the PGA players. He always says, if you're doing sports medicine in 2020 and beyond, you definitely need this technology. And he's like, hey, I'm not here to debate who's got the best device, but he goes, I have 3 of them, and this is what I use. Again, a couple of things I always like to explain to people is this device has both a primary and secondary supersonic sound wave, and that is different from any other shockwave device company on the planet. That uses electrohydraulically produced supersonic sound waves, and it's traveling 4.4 times the speed of sound. So it's 3,355 miles an hour. Again, it can penetrate the depth of a soup can into the body. It's considered a non-significant risk factor by the FDA because there's little to low side effects. There's minimal side effects. There's little downtime. So your patients pop up near immediate relief. I think that's what I love the best. And we now have 48 patents. And this is plasma generated sound waves, healing sound waves. And this is Dr. Wolfgang Schaden. I just want to share this with you. I hope you guys can hear it.
When you put, this is how the shockwave would develop. And when you put this source into an ambient fluid, you see how the shockwave is reflected and then
No other shockwaves have a primary and a secondary wave.
This is what I wanted to say now.
Damn it.
And what
But nobody ever measures the primary wave. All this -6 it's never on the, nobody's ever measured.
That's pretty cool. That was John Warlick in the background talking. Can you guys see that? Oh, we got to go back to that. That's the cool one. Sorry. So the key to this is look how deep that is. Everything in that light blue is a positive biological effect. The real sweet zone where the magic happens is in that red zone. So I want doctors to understand that the energy level is how deep that pain will go. Like how deep those supersonic sound waves will go. And this is key, especially for non-healing fractures. And this is what I learned a lot about when I was in Turkey and Germany this last trip. So that's important to see. And these are some of our famous slides. If you can see that the slide on the left is the mitochondrial before, taken with an electron microscope. These were done by Johannes Hofeld when he was a medical student in Innsbruck. And this is done with electron microscope. Afterwards, on the right is what you see with your mitochondrial working at more of an anaerobic state and utilizing more ATP. This is one of my famous patients who actually used to fly down from Philadelphia. And you see her blue foot on the left, and 3 minutes after Softwave, what we were able to do. And when you see a cyanotic foot like that, you should be thinking sayonara, because they're not going to be around long. And basically, anywhere we place this on the human body, we're seeing a positive biological effect. Most importantly, Johannes Holfeld has done 67 bypass surgeries and has a 10% improvement in left ventricular ejection fraction, even 1 year after the fact. The term that you guys have to understand is mechanotransduction. And mechanotransduction is really what's happening with these supersonic sound waves that are coming. There's a positive force that you see on the high end and a negative tensile force. So first it's compressing the cell membrane by 2%, and then it's expanding it. And that shearing force is what knocks off oxidative agents and allows nutrients to get in, waste products to get out, improve cell membrane permeability, but also it helps with shedding exosomes, messenger RNA, and extracellular vesicles. All of these are precursors to stem cells. And we see all these things that it's doing. It's accelerating healing naturally. It's decreasing pain. It's flushing out that inflammation. It's activating those resident stem cells, and it's doing some wonderful work. So as you can see, these are the things it works with. It's decreasing inflammation. And I love to tell people this is where we're here. This is where we're at right now. Like after 19 years, we now have 1.5% of all chiropractors. And so it's not many. It's only, 1,000 chiropractors have this right now. And we are the perfect profession to bring this to the masses because number one, we know how to sell cash plans. Number two, we understand the way the body works. Number three, we are locating those subluxations or joint dysfunctions, removing them, and really unlocking the true healing genius, which is our own body. And, I think over the next 3 to 5 years, especially in the next 2.5 years, we'll place another 900 of these. And we will keep doubling 900 to 1,000 every 2.5 years. So that's really exciting. My part's almost done. This is where we were at 3 years ago, so 2020, and this is where we're at today. So very exciting. Thank you. I need 50 more doctors like each one of you to help us with this. All right, so that's my portion. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to let anybody who's not in, and then I'm going to make my man, where are you? Let's see where the nerve coach is, and we're going to make him let me just find you. There's a lot of people here. Dan, are you ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Justin Swanson, getting the last couple people in, and then I'm going to ask you to take over. Let me see. Nerve coach. Make you host. There you go.
All right.
All right. Take it away, my brother.
Okay, everybody. So tonight I wanted to share with you a little bit about why we brought in Softwave, how I think about it, how we communicate it, how we train our team, and why we brought this to our community, and how that's gone since, how the launch has gone, and share a little bit of the details as far as, again, how we launched it, and what I call our internal launch, friends and family launch. So Dr. Dodura wanted me to share a little bit about that. And I can go into questions, but I think he touched on the clinical results. Before I get into my stuff, I wanted to echo that. That's one of the big questions that people have when I talk to them is, does it really work? And man, I can't say enough about it. It's like, I thank the Lord that we found this. I have my dad, my mom, my brother, aunts, uncles, my team, myself, my wife, family, obviously practice members, and it's like, I just don't want to be without one, because of how it helps people to stay out of the more invasive protocols, start least invasive, most conservative first. I didn't want to integrate our practice, and, nothing wrong with that. Do what you're going to do. But I didn't want to do that. We didn't want to bring in a bunch of stuff and, injections and all of that, to each their own. But what I tell people, I guess I'd start with this, is that, chiropractic, you need it. You need to have that foundation. We need to free up the central nervous system, get the body functioning and adapting to your daily stress load at its optimal level. But the term that I use for this is go on offense. We brought this in to be able to not just slow down and stop degeneration and free up that nervous system, but same principle, philosophically, the body heals from the inside out. And the younger you are, typically the more stem cells you have. And so I really focus on that component of stem cell migration in terms of going on offense and regenerating as much healthy tissue as we can. And I think of it and communicate it like a ladder. There's a time and a place to go down the road of, injections, PRP and stem cell and mesenchymal and all that stuff. You can travel outside the country. But a lot of the people who've even done those things that have found Softwave will tell you that Softwave has been one of, if not the biggest, components of their recovery. So, I just wanted to reiterate that the clinical results are outstanding. And I really don't have a horse in the race other than I want to help more people. I want to help more docs. So from that standpoint, it's really, really exciting. Nobody wants to do something and build it up and, create all this excitement about it and then, have the results be a flop. That's no good. That's incongruent. It's out of integrity. So, I wouldn't be associated with it or be recommending, you consider it if that were the case. So I can go into, details of that: shoulders, knees, neuropathy, spine, plantar fasciitis, all that stuff. So with that said, let me go ahead and share. I have a couple slides, nothing fancy. But I wanted to talk to you guys about the launch that we did. That's a lot of the questions that people ask me when I talk to them. One of the questions is it worth the investment? How are we going to make sure we pay for it? Is it going to be profitable? And, one thing when I present this information, when I share it with people, I just ask for your permission to talk about money. It's not about the money, but it is an investment, and you need to generate revenue and to be able to communicate and build value for that value exchange. So, if we're investing into this and we're investing time and training and team, we need to be able to make sure that works out. Let me see, I got to admit here. There we go. So I just wanted to give that as more or less a disclaimer. So Dr. Derdura asked me to share a little bit about our trajectory. And so when we opened our practice in 2015, we grew quickly. That's not because of me, that's in spite of me. Chiropractic works. We've had great teachers, and we're just passionate about it. And, we were really blessed to grow quickly early on. So like I said, 800 a week we were doing for a number of years, and we were doing about 100 a month. If you see me exit out of that, it's just because I am letting some folks in as they're coming in. So we've been doing about 100 a month in Cairo, and since then we've done some other things. Maybe I'll just keep it like this. We've done some other things, in terms of neuropathy. If and you guys know about some of what I do, we work with neuropathy, and I can explain that more maybe at a later date. But, Softwave has been an integral part in elevating our neuropathy program and bringing in that regenerative component. So that's been really exciting. And that's one of the ways that we keep our schedule very full with the Softwave device. We have our technician. She does Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and most of those days are very full most of the time. And so a lot of ways you can fill that. But so anyway, about 4 years in, we started doing neuropathy. We grew the team. And we brought in, I'm going to skip ahead here. Our 7th year is when we brought in Softwave. And I just want to talk to you about this piece. And again, I'm talking about dollars because, people want to know, am I going to be able to pay this back? Is it worth it? Does it work? All of those things. That's what I've heard, so we brought this in, and I'm going to talk to you in just a couple minutes about some of the particulars of this internal launch. But just to give you a summary, we put out some videos to people who've had an appointment within the last 3 years, current and past practice members, for a friends and family launch before we ever marketed anything, before we ever ran an ad. And we had 110 people scheduled for a day 1 and a day 2. Day 1 consult exam mapping session, day 2 reports. And over 3.5 weeks, like I said, we're really blessed in practice to be able to have an amazing team. So I could do this myself in terms of the case management with the support from my team. So I took through 110 people for a day 1 and a day 2 over 3.5 weeks, and 108 of them started care. The 2 that didn't, it was just some financial stuff at the time, they couldn't start. But in 3.5 weeks of launching this device, just to our internal practice members, that's what we did. And that generated $313K in 3.5 weeks. So that process, it's all relative. If you see 25 people and you start 15 of them, it's a big chunk to help to get you going. And that was one of our biggest months. We almost did 400 that month. So just a little bit of how things have progressed. So if I may, I'm gonna just share this with you. 3 weeks, scarcity and urgency. That's really part of the internal launch. And basically the communication was, over 3 videos that I did that I uploaded to YouTube, and we sent out the link to our people. I basically did about a 6-minute video 3 different times, building up the excitement, because it was pretty new to me relatively, and as I was learning more and more about it, I was just like, I'm talking to a friend, like we talk to our practice members, Germany and Austria. And at the time, I think it was, 12 or 13 years there. It's been in the States for 3 years, and, all these patents. And, I was just going through some of the particulars of it. And, we're talking about things that people can relate to: knees that you've been told are degenerating bone on bone, trying to avoid replacement, disc degeneration, stenosis, shoulder issues, rotator cuff, and just, the basic principles of how it works. It, non-invasive, most conservative, least invasive. So special type of sound wave, and immediately it brings in blood flow. It helps to modulate the inflammatory process, and it clears what they call senescent cells, which are dead cells, damaged tissue. But the big piece of value that I want to share with you is that it causes what's called stem cell migration over the weeks and months to come. So that means that your resident stem cells are migrating to this area of damaged tissue, where they can then go on offense and work to repair damage and regenerate as much new healthy tissue as possible. So my goal for you all, and this is how I'm talking to our people, I'm like, for yourselves, your family members, loved ones, co-workers, if you know someone who's struggling with these things and they're trying to stay out of more meds, injections, which is leading to surgery, and they've not yet heard about Softwave, we need to get them in. And so what we're doing is, and I just explained the process, we're doing a consultation and mapping session, and then a report of findings and recommendations for all of our current and past practice members and your friends and family before we make this available to the public. And so we're reserving, I think I said the first 2 weeks in whatever month that, or the last 2 weeks in March, or whenever it was. It wound up being 3.5 weeks that I had to extend it to. But I told them that before we start making this available public, we're going to do this. So, and then the call to action was, I need you to reply with your first and last name, and the first and last name of of any of your family or friends or loved ones that also want a mapping session. And the normal fee is 300 and we're doing them for 49. So just reply with your first and last name, and then either call the front desk, the team at the front desk, or see our team at the front when you're in for your next appointment, and they will find you a day and time for each of your appointments and get your 49 squared away so that we can take care of everyone as efficiently as possible. That's what we did over 3 videos. And I actually sent a 4th video, which was like an expert interview. And those were the results. So then it was just a matter of, okay, now we have 20 to 24 people a day scheduled for day 1s, day 2s, day 1s, day 2s, and they just alternated, just like when we started our chiro practice. And those were the results. And so, I think that it's what I would call low-hanging fruit. There's people that already know, like, trust you, have gotten great results, and now you're able to serve them at a greater level. And part of my motivation was, my mom had plantar fasciitis, and there's this guy down the road in the next town over, and he does some stuff with lasers and, Graston and whatever, some different things. I guess I shouldn't say that, I like him, but I didn't do any of that. And, I really didn't have a desire to do it. But once we had this in-house, and it was built out to serve people, I thought to myself, because I have a number of friends and colleagues where, they'll open a different business, or, they'll start a franchise or a gym or a laundromat. I'm like, we could have done a bunch of stuff, but what we did was we invested in this and we built it as a new practice. And I caught a bunch of crap for it. And but it is what it is. And you gotta determine, is it congruent, and are we going to help people? And the principle is ADIO. It's still the same principle. And this is not chiropractic. It's chiropractic is the analysis, detection, and correction of subluxation with the adjustment. But guess what? This is needed because the healthcare system is broken, and we're perfectly positioned to bring it to people. And, so anyway, that's what we did. And I did them outside because I thought, hey, why not? It'll catch people's attention and this and that. And, and it just created a lot of buzz. So I sent out, I had my team send them out, and then people replied. And I think we spaced them out like 3 days at a time. And, and then it just went into, our normal flow then, of confirmation calls and reminders. And, I videotaped the process and took pictures, and, we build it. And the way that I like people to think about it is like a corrective care chiropractic office. There's corrective sessions, and then there's maintenance and optimization. So just like we do adjustments more frequently in the beginning and we assess progress, and then we move into more maintenance and optimization, it's the same thing per each region, the way that we do it for Softwave. So we start with a region, and then we graduate them to maintenance and optimization. And then if they have a second region, we get into that with corrective and, so forth. So, I hope that was helpful. I tried not to ramble too much about it, but man, it was effective. And it's just like, if you're on fire, man, and you're passionate about it and your heart's in the right place, and there's people out there who just need it. As somebody said to me at some point, a lot of the orthopedic work, that's done is going to become obsolete over the years. Is, this is really where people need to be starting. So here or there, other than, if we can get more people using drugs, injections, and surgeries as a last resort instead of a first option, let's do it. Anyway, that's what I have to share, Doc. I hope that was helpful. And we can do questions.
I mean, and again, I go back to Dr. James Bradley, who team physician for 32 years for Pittsburgh Steelers. He's also sold his orthopedic practice to the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. And, there he has a team of orthopedists, and one of them specifically is considered a non-invasive orthopedist. And this guy is doing 12 to 20 treatments per day with our Softwave there. And I didn't even know that was possible. But the way I look at when you place this device in the hands of a chiropractor or physical therapist or manual therapist, it makes you a non-invasive orthopedist with a focus on regenerative healing from inside out. And I love how you have really brought in some of the core principles of chiropractic with above, down, inside out. I always believe that. And I'm a CBP doctor at heart. So, you know, the spine and the nervous system in the structure is so important. But now we all have a tool that can help get down to the level where the pain and injury is coming from. And so, listen, these are phenomenal numbers. You know, there's not everybody is willing to open up their books and share their numbers, their heart and their soul. And you do it out of the kindness to help get this to more people and help more people. So I'm grateful for that. Let's see, I'm going to look and see if we have any questions here. But I mean, those are phenomenal numbers. And again, what was your following like? Did you have 100,000 people on Instagram following? How did you create some of these numbers? What are your social media sites like?
No, you know, so that wasn't even any social media. That was, we sent that out. You know, we have a messaging service, Sked it's called. And, you know, through we have Platinum for our EHR. It's like, you know, we run a query and, you know, people who've had appointments within the last, I think we did 3 years, you know, we just sent out those messages. And, you know, that's what we did for that internal launch. That's before, you know, we did anything. And I mean, we've had a Facebook page for a bit and Instagram. It's not super active. You know, we've got a good number of Google reviews, but, you know, this was just an internal launch before we did anything beyond.
Great. All right. I'm going to be looking at some questions here. The wonderful Misty Paul. How are you, Misty? Out of Virginia. And she says, curious about the verbiage for mapping out sessions and report of findings. Doc, how do you, like, what do you get into? I mean, you know, we give you the basic structure of it and you've kind of put your fine tuning on it. So how would you, like, what are some of the things you say? How do you get people excited, create that scarcity? Go ahead and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, yeah, the scarcity and urgency, you know, I think is part of, you know, how we present that internal launch before it goes to the public. But if we're talking about a mapping session, you know, we're sitting there with the people. I think some of the things that are important to communicate is, you know, how I described Softwave before. And I think that, you know, this is how we communicated. And, you know, I think that it's important for your whole team to be congruent and consistent with what you're saying. And so our shorter explanation of it is that it's a special type of acoustic wave or sound wave that travels very quickly through the tissue and it causes the cells to contract and expand. And they release something called an exosome. Actually, the first thing that I tell them is, you know, immediately what it does is it clears what they call senescent cells, which are dead cells and damaged tissue. It brings in blood flow and it helps to modulate the inflammatory process. But the biggest piece of value, in my opinion, for the long term, especially, is it causes the cells to contract and expand, and they release something called an exosome, which is a cell signaling molecule, and that causes your body's resident stem cells to come to the area where they can then work to repair and regenerate new healthy tissue. And so if we're talking about a knee and the meniscus, or the ligaments, the ACL, the PCL, the collaterals, if we're talking about the labrum, a rotator cuff, you know, and I'll just, not that it's about the symptoms, but people relate that just, you know, the buzzwords. So it's like, you know, plantar fasciitis, you know, frozen shoulder, stenosis. I mean, every time I do a seminar for neuropathy, I always take a couple minutes to talk about Softwave and speak outside the room, so to speak, of neuropathy. I say, you know, I know about 10 to 15% of you sitting here know that you don't have neuropathy, but you know that something's going on that's causing issues and you want to address the cause of it. So who here has heard of or is dealing with things like degenerative disc disease or stenosis? Because people are told these things, but they're not told what causes them and they're not told what to do about it. to actually address the root of that and, you know, go on offense naturally. And so, you know, we talk about things like that, you know, bone on bone knees, if you've been told that, plantar fasciitis, you know, wrist, ankles, elbows, so on and so forth, you know. And so we talk about that, and I you know, we'll tell them, look, today we'll, you know, hear about what they're dealing with and, you know, any sort of exam that's appropriate. But I say, look, you know, today, to know if you're a candidate for this therapy, to make sure that we're going to be able to help you, I need to know a couple things. And this is how we do it. You know, we'll take a picture, we'll take an x-ray of the area. I need to know that there's at least some amount of joint space there. If it's bone on bone and there's no space, you're still going to get improvement, but it's not going to be what we would expect otherwise. And when we do this mapping session, there's going to be areas where you're going to feel it. So when the sound wave goes through healthy tissue, you don't feel it. When it finds damaged tissue, you'll feel it. It'll be a little uncomfortable. And that's what we call biofeedback. That's your body telling you that that's where the damaged tissue is. And then I need you to tell me, or I need you to tell Teresa exactly where that is, because the more specific we can be, the more effective this is going to be. And so we need to find those areas of damaged tissue. Does that make sense? And they're like, yeah. And I'll tell them, look, you know, the way that we do this with a lot of people is when we find those areas, I want you to talk to me on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 is you don't feel anything. 10 is, wow, you know, turn that down, man. You know, we can't tolerate that. But anytime it's a 6, 7, 8, I mean, that's a sweet spot, uncomfortable, but tolerable. And I need you can just tell me numbers as we're going around, because we need to be as specific as possible. So anyway, I could elaborate on that further, but you know, we tell them that because I want them to know that, you know, I don't just want to waste a bunch of pulses. You know, we want to find the tissue and let it do the work, find the next spot, let it do the work. And here's a tip. When we're doing that, you know, when Teresa, or if I'm doing it, you know, when we're doing the mapping session and we're marking off the areas on the paper that we're finding the spots, we're future pacing, you know, we're speaking with expectancy as if they're already under care. So Mary, next time you're back, I'm going to have all these spots marked already. I'm not going to have to search for them all as much. So we'll be able to go right to them and be much more efficient with this. So as I'm marking them off, I'm talking about the next time they're going to be in, and you know, I'm going to be able to go right to these areas and then pinpoint each specific spot. So, you know, whatever you call that, if, you know, if it's future pacing or assumptive, you know, talking. So,
That's
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, you have to, I have this saying, do you want to get better or do you want to go home? Because going home means you're going home to do the same thing that you've been doing over and over. And what's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over, hoping for different outcomes. It's not happening. So you got it down. Dr. Armin has a question, and this one might be more for, you know, coaching, but can you let us know what you charge, please? Now, we're not here to do special pricing for everybody. Everyone lives in a different area. You want to make this affordable to people, and you want to make it accessible. I found that 24 cents a pulse is perfect. So 1,000 pulses might be $240. I do want you guys to know the difference between the OrthoGold 100, the original model, and the 100S, which has got 350,000 pulses, is that 500 pulses, which is 1 unit, it's an average treatment, we say, for reference, that costs you with the OrthoGold 350, cost you $3 to $4. In just in pulses, that's not your marketing, rent, anything else, your person that's you're hiring to do the treatment. With the OrthoGold 100, that I have 8 of these, cost $10 to $12. So you have to be careful. The OrthoGold 350 people have somewhat of an unfair advantage because this is 75% more cost efficient and effective. But guys, you're going to make money with this. I mean, it's just like you take care of people the right way, right? What is the Napoleon Hill's, the Think and Grow Rich? It's the golden law is you over deliver. If someone pays you $1, you give them $2 in service. That's it. And be a result leader. That's what it needs to be. Another good question here, and I think this one's for you. I also want to say Dr. Dan McClyman was voted the #1 speaker at our presentation at the Neuropathy Summit back in October. He did wonderful. Everybody loved him. And this was so gracious of you to come on. He is also coaching. He is the nerve coach. I did neuropathy for 11, 12 years. And I love that there's a younger generation that's doing it more effectively. Guys like Dan McClyman, Ole Olson, Ole taught me. It's like the student, the student becomes the mentor, and Dan is teaching us now. And the thing I remember about Ole Olson, he spoke last January on one of our events, and he blew my mind because he said, hey, Matt, is this more effective than PRP and stem cells? People, and I'm like, heck yeah, it is, because you get 8 sessions for this amount of money. And he said, well, why aren't you charging more? Because they're charging $5,000 for that injection, where we don't know where the biological fluid is coming from. There's a 50-50 chance this is even going to work. And it's invasive. So you got to think, like, what is your value? And that's a really good question. Oh, this is one from Kelsey. Would you ever do Softwave on neuropathy patients without home care, light therapy, and nerve, light therapy and supplements? I want to hear your answer. I'm going to say mine after, but I want to hear what you say and what you think.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's effective with or without the home stuff. If someone has neuropathy and it's more than mild, the home care is important. It's going to help them get better faster, but it's not like doing Softwave without that is a waste. I mean, Softwave is a heavy hitter. But ideally they're going to have at least the infrared lights to use at home, because of how often they can use them and how that works with angiogenesis and so forth. Do the Softwave in the office, nutrients at home, get adjusted in the office. So that's ideal. But if I'm reading this right, would you ever do it? Yeah, there's scenarios where, if it's a financial thing and they can't do that, or for some reason, they can't do or don't want to do the home stuff. I mean, Softwave on its own will get significant results, but Dr. Doduro has more experience there.
I would say this, and I have a patent pending protocol that I have actually combining Softwave with polychromatic lights. And to me, this is the most efficient and effective way. It is just too expensive for you to have patients come in for Softwave every week for the rest of their life. Unless you're a billionaire and can buy one of these, which we're selling to for this exact reason, it's really not cost effective for the average Joe. So what we found, and Dr. McClyman is one of the largest distributors on the East Coast of these polychromatic lights. He's done a great job. He's not only created a multi-million-dollar bricks and mortar clinic, but he's on pace to have one of the largest online neuropathy treatment centers. And kudos to him for dreaming big and going after it. But to me, the lights, I mean, there's no cure for neuropathy. Let's just get that straight, right? Unless they're type 2 diabetic and you're able to functional medicine reverse that, get their blood glucose levels in fact, then we can heal the damaged tissue. But there's no cure for neuropathy. And you want to manage these people and give them efficient tools like Softwave and like polychromatic lights. I personally do not use any type of rebuilder or any type of electric stim in any of my clinics, because, this is all about nerve flow. And, every time you put a muscle, electric stim on a muscle, it contracts. And if you watch these videos with blood flow, every time that muscle contracts, what happens to blood flow? It stops. So it's like the reason why people put that in is because patients couldn't feel the lights. So they wanted them to have something to think that they were doing it right. And the guy who was our mentor, my brother, Joe Doduro, who started Neuropathy Treatment Centers of America, but also Dr. Thomas Burke, PhD physiology from University of Colorado. He was the one who was like, you don't put an electric stim on a damaged nerve. And that goes against maybe some of the people you're hearing from. But let me tell you, keep it simple, stupid. The brilliance of this technology is in the simplicity of it. And you can try to add more and more stuff, but it's just extending how long these people have the treatments. One of the reasons why Dan switched from anodyne boots to the Inlights was because you got 2 boots for the price of 1. And instead of a patient going home and having to do 30 minutes on one foot and then 30 minutes on the other, it was an hour treatment. It's like our time is not more important than the patient's time. And Dr. Dan, when he made the switch a year ago, he shortened his patient's home therapy, right, Dan? Can you bring
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. So, instead of 2 hours to do that, it's 40 minutes. And the other thing about the Inlight is that there's 7 different wavelengths of red and infrared that it rotates through. So it cycles through those 7. And what David Malone will tell you is that, instead of having a plateau effect, it's more dynamic and it keeps the body adapting to those different wavelengths. And so that's the optimal way to do it. And we've seen the results from it. Plus it's less than half the time. So yeah, it's been really nice.
And that's what I love about adding Softwave to a neuropathy program, because the thing was, like, we used to do 23 sessions over 3 months, and we were getting 20% improvement in sensory nerve function. When we started adding Softwave, we did 6 visits over 12 weeks. And so it was every other week. No, 12 visits over 6 weeks, twice a week. And we got 35% improvement in half the time in 6 weeks. And to me, that was like, that's what it's all about. It's like getting people quicker, getting better, quicker, faster. And it's less, there's less people in your seats. Great question from Dr. Michael. Can I upgrade to the 350? And so, if so, how can I? Yes, we have a wonderful program. There are some changes that happened at Softwave in the last week. Our interim CEO is no longer with us. He's gone. And John Warlick, our founder, has taken back the helm. And, one of the things we did not like was the policy that if you trade in your device, you're only going to get 40,000. And that just wasn't fair. Because if you had a device for 3 months and then you want to upgrade to the 350, it wasn't fair. So now we have a way of looking at the number of pulses and how many hours are on that and give you a good idea. I just had a doc out in California, first in California. He's got 10 million pulses over the last 4 years, and he's ready to upgrade. Now I have another guy who's got in Buffalo, who's got 900,000 pulses, right? He's only had it since April. But again, we can't give the guys the same amount, right? So there's a difference. And the value in these 100s is you could have one from a year ago and turn around and sell it for $62,000, $64,000. So they're holding their value, and we shouldn't have. We were against that, and that leadership is out. So John Warlick is back. Yoo-hoo. Thank you for that question, Michael. And let me just see if we have anything else. And I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you for getting on this. We were supposed to do it tomorrow night, but it was my wife's birthday, and everyone was so kind to kind of switch it. Dr. Joe LaBarbera doing some amazing work. Thank you. He's like, I'm doing 99% of all treatments. I know. I love it. The first 18 months, I didn't let anybody else do it. But here's the problem. You start getting somewhat, I see these people, these supernatural healings, and I'm like, have to remember, it's it's not me, it's not Joe, it's not Dan, Dr. Dan. It's the body's amazing ability to heal. And this intelligent energy and sound waves has this smart modulation, and the body knows what to do with it. And that's the beautiful thing about it. Just checking to see if we have any other questions. Can you send a link to the Inlight neuropathy boots? Yes, I can. You can go through Dr. Dan McClyman for that. He can help you out with that. He's wonderful. Or direct message me and I can connect you with Dan. Dan, tell us about what you're doing for coaching. Tell us about the Nerve Coach, not just with patients, but you're also teaching doctors. I was really excited about that. So please, the last couple minutes, give us a little insight what you're doing there.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The one, I saw a question about contraindications and spinal fusions. Is there anything you want to say about that one, doing it around fusions?
You know, we can use this over metal. I honestly, I am 6 for 6 over the last 5 years with anybody who's had Harrington rods in. If you have any patients in your database, in your tribe that have had these, you know, scoliosis surgeries, you know, this could be a whole class on it that we should talk about because it changes lives. You cannot put metal inside a human body and not have some type of irritation and inflammation that happens. And for a lot of these patients, it's been there 10, 15, 20 years, and it's the entire spine. And pain just sucks the life out of people. And so some of the most amazing pre and post videos have come from those patients. So yes, with hardware in the lumbar spine, I will say this. Oftentimes after you've done the treatment, the patient feels so wonderful. And you're kind of flushing out that inflammation and melting away that scar tissue. And some of that, those byproducts, those waste products get back into the lymphatic system. And I will say this, like almost 80% of the people I've worked on, the next day, they'll call me and like, dude, I feel like I got hit by a bus. And they feel like they got the flu. They can't determine. It really takes a lot for your body to process and get that stuff out of there. So understand that, like, go slow, go lower. Don't go maybe as high as you might. Maybe treat them like you would like an 80-year-old grandma that was coming in. So that was a good question. What was the other one, Doc? Indications. Yes,
Yeah.
4 of them. Why don't you know those? Go over them.
Yeah, well, so active cancer, you're gonna quiz me. Pregnancy, right? We don't do it around, I mean,
So pregnancy does not disqualify you for Softwave care, but we're not going to do it on the low back because it's going to go right through the front. You're never going to put it over the uterus or over the fetal tissue. You're never going to do it over the left pec of someone who has a defibrillator or a pacemaker. And we wait 21 days for anyone that's had a cortisone injection. And then finally, it's cause for pause when you have, you know, adolescents that are 12 or 13. We microdose this in small paces. We might only see them 3 times instead of 6. And, you know, 16, 17-year-olds, they should be fine. Oshka Slaughters, we're doing wonderful things with shin splints, turf toe. A lot of these football players here in Georgia are in, you know, the States, and they're beat up after 8 to 12 games. And so they've been coming in and it's been really fun. Yeah, last thing was, my question was, what are you doing with your coaching? And how many, like, where do you see this going over the next, for 2024?
yeah, so we help people build elite level neuropathy programs in their practice. So when I say in their practice, you know, it's mainly home care and then whatever services you offer in the office. So in our office, we do adjustments, we do Softwave, and we also have decompression. And so that all relates to most people with neuropathy. And then there's a home care regimen. We've developed a nutrient regimen with a Mayo Clinic doctor and the InLight boots and, you know, educational stuff. So, you know, there's really a process of pre-education, you know, that we do in an automated fashion. We help people build it to be team driven if that's what they want to do, and scalable. And the way that I do it is it's, you know, we're still in the trenches doing this in our office. It's like the test lab, I call it. So, you know, it's not a big organization of a bunch of coaches and staff. It's me who does the coaching, individual calls with docs and teams and clinic owners. And then my team will help to assist as well. So we do individual and group calls, you know, and basically help people from wherever they are get to where they want to be, A to Z, you know, and that entails a whole lot of stuff, you know, so that's what we do. And we're building an army of doctors. That has been our vision. And we're doing it in a sustainable fashion. So it's very much like a personalized approach to it. We're not trying to grow as fast as we can and not provide, you know, proper service. So if, anyway, if people have questions about that, I'm happy to answer that. The thing's called Nerve Coach Professional. So that's the website if you want to learn more about it, but I'm an open book if you guys have questions on that end.
Also, you know, I just got a note from one of our video editors and said that the Neuropathy Summit is now available. We're looking to bundle both the August conference, which was first part of August at Life University, and also the neuropathy summit. We're going to bundle those together, give you the whole enchilada for that, and it will come on a thumb drive that you guys can utilize and use with your team to really get advanced training for both the doctor and your technicians. Because guys, this is what it's all about, is bringing it to the next level, working with tougher cases that you typically were going to be referred out, or they're going to go someplace else anyways. So grateful for this opportunity for all these doctors to come on and spend this hour with us. And we'll do these at least once a month. Thank you to Lena Zubin and Michael from the Zubin Agency, who've really put a lot of this together and helped us get the conference in Atlanta. Dan, I think they should help post more stuff about you, because you're doing some unbelievable work, and there are definitely angels among us on this planet. So thank you.
Hey, Doc, I appreciate that. I just put that link in there. I didn't know if you wanted to tell people about how to get a hold of you guys if they have questions, if they don't have a device and want to learn in terms of getting on a call with your team.
Yeah, and say you mentioned you watched this and heard this from Dr. Dan McClyman. Hey, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and please be safe. Every day is a blessing, and remember, always be learning. Thank you.
Bye, guys.